Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. House Republicans Trey Gowdy and Bob Goodlatte are demanding the appointment of a new special counsel to investigate the abuse of civil liberties by the DOJ and the FBI. We'll have the latest on that in just a minute. But first tonight, former Trump campaign aide Sam Nunberg went on television yesterday and the news world ground to a halt. Nothing else happened. Americans stopped dying of drug ODs. The world's post-war order stopped collapsing. Robots stopped taking our jobs. The borders were secure because for most of the day, all that mattered was Sam Nunberg. Watch.
Good evening. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, breaking news. Defiant and speaking out, Trump's former campaign aide, Sam Nunberg, refusing to comply with a grand jury subpoena in the Russia investigation.
This is exactly what the White House did not want to hear. So you have to wonder, what does Sam Nunberg really know?
Perhaps unprecedented comments from a former Trump campaign aide who says he's been subpoenaed.
In the history of American news media, we had never witnessed anything like this.
Who writes news copy? Russian bots, non-English speakers for sure. Sam Nunberg speaking out. But wait, who is Sam Nunberg exactly? Well, until just yesterday, he was a pretty obscure part-time political consultant from New York City who's apparently been struggling with a substance abuse problem. He's actually a pretty nice guy, but you probably never heard of him. Almost nobody had heard of him. And now the media are telling you that Nunberg could be the key to this whole scandal, the John Dean of this fake Watergate. Except that unlike John Dean, Nunberg was nowhere near the decisions when they were made. He worked at a low level of the Trump campaign before it was actually a campaign. He left almost a year and a half before the election. If there was indeed a Russia conspiracy, Sam Nunberg would not know anything about it. More likely, what was going on yesterday, Nunberg brilliantly played the press, because it turns out this Friday he's talking to Robert Mueller's investigators, which is yet another measure of how absurd this independent counsel investigation is if you're talking to Sam Nunberg. Others, though, have been charged with perjury after doing interviews with Mueller's investigators. Nunberg will not be. Why? Because he just admitted in public to being an alcoholic and then acted like a lunatic on television for hours. It is the perfect preemptive insanity defense. Mueller can't indict him. After yesterday, no jury would convict Sam Nunberg. Was that Nunberg's plan? Well, we don't know, really. But if it was, none of the people interviewing him yesterday would have figured it out, because there is nobody dumber than most cable news hosts at CNN and MSNBC. How dumb? Well, dumb enough to see Russian saboteurs under every bed. Russia, the place, the actual country, is grim and hopeless. It's got a lower than replacement birth rate. It's got waning power on the world stage. It has one military base outside its borders. It's not a major player anymore. But the imaginary Russia, the one you see on television every night, has never been more powerful. At the DNC and NBC News, Vladimir Putin is diabolical and omnipotent. Putin put Trump in office. He gave the Senate nomination in Alabama to Roy Moore somehow. He empowered the NRA. He likely handpicked seasoned masters of espionage like Sam Nunberg and Carter Page to undermine our democracy. It's delusional, but they fervently believe it. Meanwhile, back in the real world, evidence mounts that the actual problem is not the Russians or Vladimir Putin. It is the corrupt and decadent and resolutely stupid leadership of our own elites. That is why Trump got elected, in reaction to them. That's why the European Union is in the process of collapsing. Just this weekend in Italy, while we were all talking about Sam Nunberg, the ruling party there was crushed while anti-establishment candidates won big. Voters, the polls showed, were deeply unhappy with economic policies that have enriched a few while stealing the future from young people. They hated the immigration policies that have crushed their national culture under waves of migrants. Sound familiar? Well, there, as here, the elites have failed. But they can't admit that. They can't face their own failure. So instead, they blame the unseen hand of Russia. Former Obama official Samantha Power actually said that out loud in a tweet. Russia won the Italian election, she explained. Well, maybe Samantha Power and her friends at MSNBC and the rest have no choice but to keep pretending. If our ruling class admitted the sad truth about Russia, they'd have to take responsibility for their own ineptitude and failures, and they won't. And so the insanity continues.